Hi guys, welcome back. My name's Hunter and this is Zach.
And this is Brent. And this is our best guess.
Hell yeah.
So, this episode, we're going to be interviewing my friend Brent. I met him at my second job, Pokey Pokey. That's where I met. I didn't meet Hunter at Pokey Pokey, but I met Hunter at work. And that's where a lot of the best conversations that I have personally, I don't know about you guys, but I have it with my coworkers.
It's kind of interesting how you end up talking more with your coworkers just because you're in a confined environment.
You're kind of forced to.
Yeah, you're sort of forced to, but you also, at least from my experience, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a nice connection to make, and you make more connection
Right.
with people who are more different than you.
Yeah, I think you're kind of forced to, right?
Right.
You don't
absolutely.
really have an option.
I think what makes it nice is you're forced to be in this place with people, but then you find that they're pleasant. They're pleasant to talk to, and you're like,
right.
Wow, this isn't that bad to be.
It's a good word,
to
pleasant.
be
Pleasant to talk to, yeah.
Or you find out the opposite. They're just miserable.
And
Right,
then you're in a situation like me and our job.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually rivals.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're constantly competing against each other.
This was just a match made in heaven, right?
Yeah, basically. We started this to talk shit about each other.
Mostly.
I got you.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I think today we're actually going to skip a little bit over our series.
Yeah, the series that we're doing.
This is going to be like a bump in the road. We're going to talk about the art of fighting. A lot of people view fighting in general as a more violent, or I guess less expressive art form.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should address that. And would you like to tell us your?
Actually, sorry. Before we start, let's introduce what we're drinking.
Man.
So, just long story short, Brent is a fighter, and we're gonna be talking about fighting. We get deep into just different thoughts about different things, and Brent's very knowledgeable in that subject. So, to honor him with the 0 calories or the low calories at least.
Yeah.
We are doing Mike's Hard Seltzers. So I have the lemonade, I have the lime. He has the lemonade, and
I have the lemonade as well.
they both have the lemonade.
I have a strawberry lemonade somewhere around here. I need to finish
There
this
was a strawberry lemonade somewhere, but it's all right. Okay, so let's see if we can get this on camera. There. Wow, you know what? Camera likes it. Camera likes it.
I think he likes the dark. But that being said, cheers. Let's talk about you, Brent.
If you guys can drink at home, we appreciate it. If not, cheers. All right.
I got my second one, so I guess.
You're going to just pop them both? All right. Go for it.
So we're going to let Brent introduce himself, just talk a little bit about what he thinks.
And there's Baggy. Wow, it's become so efficient. It's less than 10 seconds. All right.
Cool.
So, give us a story. Where you started?
So, how I started, I guess, finding martial arts was when I was 16 years old. I kind of didn't hang out with the best of people at the age of 16. There was a lot of things that led me to that place. But overall, the more times I hung out with these people, I really thought to myself, man, I could get jumped any day, and I would not know what to do to defend myself against these guys. So I decided, I was at the time I was trying to figure things out, and I was 3 a.m., 4 in the morning, as I was thinking about this, an infomercial about kickboxing showed up, and I was okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go find the nearest kickboxing place I can find, and we'll start doing that. I had no idea about kickboxing, didn't know where to look, didn't know what kind of place. So I found a place called LA Boxing here in Albuquerque. Well, actually, Rio Rancho, where I lived at the time. So I went for a month, did kickboxing, and it was great. And then one day I look and I see all these guys in the corner rolling around with each other, getting kind of just all this weird stuff in the corner. And I was like, man, what is that? So I went up and I talked to them and I asked them, I was like, hey, do you mind if I come join you guys, kind of see what this is like? And they actually told me, yeah, come Monday, So, I waited, came Monday, And I have not gotten demolished ever like that in my life. You know, I got put in chokeholds and arm bars and positions I didn't even know existed. And instantly I fell in love with it because I was like, oh my God, you can do this to people? And it just blew my mind that this was even possible, right?
Hell yeah.
I think that's interesting actually because like there's like two aspects to fighting there. So number one, you know how we were talking about like people have a stereotype about like fighters, like it's seen as violent or whatever. Or even just the initial like, oh, I need to defend myself, like it's something I need to do against like bad people. But then you see these dudes just fighting the corner, like I'm assuming they're not enemies, like I'm assuming they're friends, like just
right. It
rolling.
becomes like an interesting art form,
right?
You're actually,
and then you're talking about you getting
armbarred, choked out.
Yeah, choked out. There's something about it that's, even though it's painful. My experience with it is like it's so fun. It's so like addicting.
Yeah, and it's it's funny. It's an interesting like I guess mindset when it comes to it because like I would say not everyone can do it. Not for the fact that they couldn't train it. It's just some part of our society is so deep in ego. Right, like me, I got choked out, armbarred, and I loved it because I was like, man, I just wanted to do that to the average day person if I needed to defend myself, right? But like, I have people come in when I'm coaching, or even when I'm training, and they get armbarred and choked out, and because they were vulnerable and they show that they weren't the toughest guy on the block, they stop because they don't ever want to be vulnerable again.
Yeah,
right, and they don't have that mental building blocks for, okay, so I got choked out, now I need to be better.
Yeah,
instead of
wow. That's interesting. There's a lot of things like that, like you said, societally, like where if you can't fight someone just because you're knowledgeable of how to fight, or like
and that
anything,
applies to a lot of aspects of life.
like
it's not
anything, really.
physical. It can be mental as well. If you can't fight somebody, it's not go to the pettiest corner you have. It's be better next time.
Right.
So, I think that, personally, and this is going to move it to a little bit of a different subject or point, but I think that fighting has a lot to do with mostly a mental strength. It doesn't really matter how much or how often or how well you do in fighting. It's that you continue to learn and continue to do so. And I think a lot of society lacks that in just about everything.
No, and I think that was such on the dot, right? Because a lot of people don't think, especially like with Western cultures, right? Like we're so built on having more, right? And ego. And the thing is, the minute you're found out you're not the best here, you're not there. I mean, how many guys can tell you that they want to go and get knocked out in front of a whole crowd?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
And I promise you, they're probably not going to lift their hand. But one person's going to end up like that, right? That's two people go in there. One person comes out.
Yep.
And, sometimes it's just the luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
someone
you get
had
lucky.
a bad day or something.
Yeah.
Dodge wrong and...
Yeah, and it could be a million aspects that can come into play to that, right? Like, your girlfriend broke up with you an hour before.
Yeah.
And guess what? You got to go out there, right?
Yeah.
Worst fight ever.
Yeah, exactly, right? But or like maybe someone you're close to passed away.
Yeah.
And you're like determined to still keep going.
You haven't trained enough. You haven't repeated it. You haven't been mentally there enough. Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
and then that's a big one too, is just mental preparedness too. Like you could be like the most prepared. You could have trained 4 times a day, but if you a second doubt yourself, it's over. I would rather have.
Oh, this guy looks kind of big, actually. Like,
yeah, exactly.
When you walk into the ring, and you're like, those are some big punches, and you're like,
maybe
oh
I didn't
shit.
train enough.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not cut out for this.
And it's funny, like, every fighter does go through it. Every fighter.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's not a single fighter that cannot tell you that, hey, I am shitting bricks every minute until I walk into that cage,
And probably while you're in there, too. Like,
oh, yeah.
You get hit once, and you're like, fuck, can he do that multiple times? Shit. Then you have to, you have to backpedal your own mentality, like, okay, I gotta set myself, I have to reset, I have to, go back into it as me without thinking, oh, God, he hits like a train.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, too, it's like, I always tell people, like, especially when I'm cornering people, you just have to survive the first round. After that, it's a breeze. Because the nerves are gone. the people watching, like, it's just not there anymore. It's like you're kind of in this trance. And when I tell people this, I let them know that I was like, you know, on the other hand, we are also not made out of glass. That's what I tell people, right? We can actually take a lot more, like, because honestly, I think Joe Rogan said it the best, like, if we were made out of glass, we would have killed off our people a long time ago, especially how violent human species are naturally, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And because we're actually, like, you can get hit and it'd be a freight train, but you're like, but I'm still here.
Mhm.
I didn't get knocked out. I'm
Yeah.
still in this, right?
It's that second wind aspect.
It's that second wind aspect. But trust me, it's also how you look at it and how you can react. Because like me, I get terrified before fights. I'm like shitting bricks in the bathroom. Like, oh my god, why am I doing this? Like I've thought about like running to the parking lot, getting my car and driving off. They're like calling my name to go out.
Once you start it, it's like, damn, I gotta. You gotta give it your all, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's 100 or none.
Yeah.
So okay, with that like being said, something you said you want to talk about was like, kind of modern views of fighting, because like
Actually, I want to focus on this too. Like, how do you think most crowds respond to fighting? I'm interested in this only because crowds are there for the fight, and I would like to know like what your comparison is between the crowd and like people, like just
right.
people in general.
So like maybe let's like make a separation between like people who fight versus like the crowd versus like people who aren't approving of it.
Okay.
Like what do people think about like fighting?
So I'm assuming what you're thinking of is like the difference between the people who go to fights to watch the blood sport is what we like to call it, or like the people who are like anti-fighting. Maybe the difference between the two, kind of that conversation. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the people who go to watch fights, but have never been in a fight, right? And let me divide of course. So let me start with this one. So Western culture over Eastern culture is completely different, right? I don't know if you ever heard of Pride, like the old school Pride fighting. It was 10 minutes long, your first match, and it was in Japan. And then you had 2 rounds after that were 5 minutes long, and it was like you could soccer kick each other. It was the 90s, little early 2000s, called Pride, right? And then UFC actually bought them out to morph them together. Then, I've talked to people, some of my coaches are former Pride fighters, and they'll tell you, they're like, Asian, like in Asia, and then especially Japan, they support fighters no matter if you're from there or if you're a foreigner. They respect you. It's not like, go, hey, tear his throat out,
Yeah.
Twist his dick, all that kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like in Western culture, which they will do that, like, even if you lose, you're honorable, right? Because you got in there. You put your life on there. Now, Western culture, it's not, right? Because I think we're also very built on kind of like our media, our entertainment. We consume
it's what you get out of it, really.
Exactly. We consume such, like, even some violent nature that we're so, like the ones that enjoy it are into that blood sport. Don't really realize what's going on. I think a lot of people still have that... metaphorically think that it's kind of in a fake world, that they're watching this, they don't think it's real to that extent.
Do you feel comfortable with like calling it blood sport? Because to me it seems a little like hyperbolic almost. Like it's not a blood sport necessarily. There will be blood eventually at some point, but it's not a blood sport. It's not gladiatorial. Like, you're not intestines everywhere. Like
exactly.
That's also interesting. You bring up people like who's kind of separated from it. They think it's not real, because that's something that we've talked about before. Is like a lot of people now, they don't view what things actually are, because they're watching it from a TV. They're watching it from
even in the stands. They would just be like, it's a separation between them and
There's
what is entertaining. That's not
right.
something that they necessarily identify with.
So like that's a really good point, right? Like that's why I always tell people, like, they see fights and they think it's like they could do it, right? I can do this, right? I can be in here But the
Well, if I
amount
just
of...
did 50 push-ups a day,
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
be...
One Punch Man?
Yeah. Oh, I would have done this in this situation.
Right.
None of these people have ever probably been punched in the face.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
And
Yeah, it definitely it changes your perspective.
yeah, it changes your perspective on...
You're like, oh
wow.
shit, I don't want that to happen again. And then, yeah, no, there's...
Yeah, you're like, wow, I really can't do this. You know what I mean? And it's...
I think there's a certain point of personal panic that happens with some fighters. I experienced this when I was a kid, boxing. Like, it was always training, and then once you got in the ring and somebody hit you, even with the guard on, some kids would just be like, no, not at all. Like,
No.
not happening,
Yeah.
never gonna happen again. So, I guess what I'm asking is, are there specific people that need to be fighters? Are there, like, societal people that fill a role in fighting versus the people on the sidelines, and they will never,
kind of like
connect?
that where I think, I feel like I'm in that belief that anyone can be pushed to a certain limit, right? If it wasn't for my circumstances,
that.
like, I grew up when I was a little kid as a very timid kid. Like, I never wanted to fight nobody. You know what I mean? Like, I was a very, like, I just want to be everybody's friend. I don't want to hurt nobody, and I don't want no one hurting me. I just
Right,
want
and for the record, he's a very nice dude. Like, look at
Super
him.
nice, yeah. Like,
He's a
way
very...
nicer than Hunter. Jeez. Like,
Yeah, I'm mean. I'm mean with words.
yeah, and so, like, and then a lot of things, like, not only with that friend group, but, I grew up with an alcoholic as a father, so it kind of, like, everything of me being a timid person led me I kind of was forced down this path, which was, and when I first started this, I just wanted, one, to defend myself against this group of people, and also give myself a sense of some kind of power of this world that I had no control over. You know what I mean?
Did that establish a better, like, foundation for you? Like, when you started fighting, was that, now I'm Brent?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Because with fighting, it showed me that you can be, like, vulnerable. You can be all these... It's weird, like, the opposite of what you think what fighting would give you. It gave me this thing, like...
Right, you weren't, the TV show Bloodthirsty Gladiator.
Yeah,
you were,
exactly.
like, ripped before you got in there and got a sword. You were... I hurt, and thus I must try and make myself stronger, and that's kind of how you developed. Is that right?
What's interesting about that is, like, we talk a lot... Oh, I talk about this a lot. Is, like, people taking responsibility for, like, existence.
Their
like,
weaknesses, really.
Their weaknesses, right. So, like, all, bad things, like, being a timid kid. I was a very timid kid as well. And then eventually I had to be like, okay, well, I'm just me. And if, at a certain point, people want to, like, squash that. And there is a real, like, power in just being able, even just learning that you can take a hit.
Yeah,
like, that you can
just
get
the
a hit.
simple fact that I'm not gonna die if I take a punch.
And after that, I like that. That's a very, like, you talking about, you becoming a fighter and, like, you kind of being forced into it, like you being, like, pushed there, and anyone being pushed there is, it's like at a certain point you have to take responsibility and say, like, look, I may be vulnerable, I may not be there yet, but, like, that's not going to stop me from trying.
Oh, yeah.
I also think equally there's a responsibility not to take it out on others.
Definitely, yeah.
Because there is that aspect. Like you said, you were forced into this, but you could have equally been, a malicious, evil, like, bad person.
Just mean.
And
torturing animals and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, there's that option. And I think that the option you took is much healthier, and by societal standards, we should admire that path a lot more than we do.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, because, like, I remember when I was 16, like, before I started fighting, because I hung out with this group, I myself thought I was the toughest shit on the block. Even though I had been in 2 street fights, right?
Well, street
They weren't real, yeah.
Street fights are weird, because you can end up being, like, standing on the side and being like, I should participate, and then just not. I've done that a time, and it was just like, well, they're going at it, and I know that those are my friends, and well, I wasn't
It-
really here. Like,
It's also funny because like I've been in like a street fight where like the dude like fell over and like his like pants kind of came off and like he was embarrassed and I didn't want to like fight him more. Like he was
Right, his
starting
butt
it.
is out
Yeah,
there.
his
You're
butt is
like-
out, and it's like.
see, bar fights
Dude,
are
like,
a little
yeah,
different.
let's just-
I've been involved in a few bar fights, and
Uh-huh.
those are just drunk people swinging wild haymakers at each other. That's like legitimately what it is. The only time that it ever got serious was I was in a bar and some dude stabbed his own brother that they were playing pool together with in the hand, and I was like, "Hey, you should put the knife away." And then he stabbed him in the hand, and that was like
He's
the
like, you see what I just did to my brother? I'll do that to you.
yeah. No, it wasn't
That's
even like that.
Albuquerque.
No, it legit wasn't even like that. It was like he stabbed him in the hand, and he was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." And his brother was like, "You stabbed me in the hand," and they were like, they both got kicked out of the bar, got arrested. Like, it was such a weird experience.
Sorry to sidetrack, but like I knew a kid in high school where like he was supposed to be like he's acted tough. He like
I think
He-
those
he-
people are some of the like most. Excuse me for people who are like this, but they're the most pathetic people on earth.
Right.
Like
When
they're
you're
so
talking about, like,
cringy.
when you're talking about like vulnerability, I feel like those people are very vulnerable. And instead of
Oh, yeah.
like when you're able to like admit
Ego
it,
wise, definitely.
yeah. So when you're able to admit it, like that's where you're able to grow. But like they just can't. There's some people that like earn,
And that's
that-
majority, I think, of the
Right.
population.
I think so
honestly.
as well.
You really
But,
think like most people are
Oh yeah,
egotistically vulnerable?
I
Like that?
think most people like in a weird like I think I guess what society will call it like they're fragile in that way like
Mhm.
to not open that hey
Mhm.
I can be like not the best person at this. I can be, you know, I can accept the fact I can get my ass kicked, right? And like understand, like respect that.
Mhm.
And you go to, and I'm talking about more like mainstream.
Mhm.
That's what I was looking for. that word.
Machoism.
Yeah, mainstreaming,
Right.
like not underground type of our culture, like mainstream culture, right? Where you know you got the flashiest stuff, you're the alpha, but everybody's the alpha, right? And
Right.
how can I do better than this person is? And that's where you see these bar fights, right? Oh, this dude looked at my girl wrong. You know,
That's
what I mean?
how
And-
most of them start. Is they're so defensive. Like they're I don't want to say vulnerable, but very sensitive.
Mhm.
Like it's nothing that triggers them,
Mhm.
and they just want to be the toughest dude. And you're like, well, I'm like 6 feet tall, and you're 5'4". I'm sorry.
And I was a bouncer actually for a little while.
no shit.
Yeah, I was. A
How
bouncer.
was that experience? I'm sorry to sidetrack, but I do have to ask. I've never met a bouncer in person that I could ask this, but how often do you really have to bounce people? Like
in Albuquerque, yeah, quite a lot actually.
yeah.
There's probably a lot of like
yeah,
people that are cracked out.
And
you
it's
know?
not.
it's-
Is it violent or is it just like, dude, get out or I'll.
It can't. So like, I got some crazy. Not crazy. I only bounced for 5 months, 6 months, right? And the reason I actually like, so I'm gonna go like the reason why I stopped bouncing, right? Because at first I was like, I was single. I was like, I just got out of a relationship in college, and I was like, and a buddy of mine.
And he's really tall, by the way. He's taller than me. I'm 6
Yeah,
foot. What are you
tall
like?
also.
6'2"?
Yeah,
6'1"?
6'2", yeah. I was like, so he called me and he was like, hey, like you want to come help me? Like I worked with him and I actually coached him in like jiu-jitsu, and I worked with him and helped him out with his game. He's like, yeah, you should come. I'm the head bouncer. Come help us out. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll do it. And it was under the counter. They paid you in cash every
Yeah,
night.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
It's
Not a-
easier to do that anyway.
yeah.
You
no.
just stand at the door and.
There's a
you
lot
know.
of jobs in Albuquerque that I like that.
Yeah, they're
It's-
just very under the counter.
Well, especially because you're a bouncer. You stand at the door and you're like, don't come in, and or get the fuck out.
Mm.
Like
I did like
it's-
farming jobs where like it's farming. Like he's a farmer.
I did construction in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Across the street, literally from here, and it was all under the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, most Albuquerque, I guess, right? That's how our
You know, money's money.
society kind of goes off of Albuquerque. So yeah, and so like I'm gonna start off with like why I quit because I was about to fight an MMA fight. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I was about to
The fight itself?
The fight itself didn't work out. It got canceled. But I was getting ready for an MMA fight, and I had to think to myself, every time I work here, I risk getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
Stabbed.
Yeah, getting stabbed, shot, injured.
Mostly stabbed.
Right, and I was like, I can't afford that. Like, I just can't afford being
I mean, I'm not shitting on your situation, obviously, but most people can't really afford to be stabbed in the lungs.
Yeah.
Like,
But most people
I-
aren't as at risk as that position.
That's true. Like, it's not like,
Like in our job,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, well, maybe for me because of our lead. But
I'm gonna stab you eventually. You know that, right? Like, it's gonna happen.
just like shoot me. I don't want to be stabbed. Please.
Yeah, you've said that before, but no, I totally get that. What would you continue doing bouncing if there wasn't a competition? Do you think that would be a good job for someone who is a fighter like you?
Oh yeah, most fighters do bouncing for that reason, because they need something that they can get money fast. Because it's hard, like it is super
How
difficult
much
to
do
work
they
a
pay
full
for
time.
bouncing?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it
How
was-
much do they pay for bouncing? Like, I am
was-
actually curious. I don't know.
I kind of got the short end because I didn't know other bouncers getting paid better. It was like $10 an hour.
That's
Yeah.
what you got paid
Yeah,
for bouncing?
it was $10 an hour.
Wow,
Yeah.
that-
And that was another reason why I quit too, because I was like, this is not worth my life.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you get stabbed in the
$10.
lung. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how strong you are. Just like 1 4-inch blade that's illegal.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you're dead.
And another, like, it's funny. I remember the first day I started. Like, I asked one of the bouncers, he was leaving, right? And I was gonna replace him. And I asked him, I was like, "Why are you leaving?" He goes, "I just get punched a lot." And I was like, "Yeah." And like, I was like, "What do you mean you get punched a lot?" Like,
He gets
because I have
punched?
he told me I have a punch. He's like, "I have a punchable face, I guess." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "People would just walk by him, and then out of nowhere just suck him."
Damn.
Like, and this is
The
Albuquerque.
bouncer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would suck the
Like,
bouncer.
he was an obvious, that's the bouncer.
Yeah, and they would just walk by him and then sock him in the face, like kind of like
That sounds
a
like
bitch punch. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it was-
like sucker punch.
Sucker
yeah,
punch.
yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
That's what
It sounds like a monkey paw thing, like where he was like, "Oh, I want to be big," but he gets punched
He
every
gets
time.
punched a lot, that's funny.
Yeah, and like he told me that, and I was like thinking to myself, like, guys just randomly punch you, like, and like
I'm with you. I don't believe that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
so like I don't know, but like the thing is I do believe him after I started bouncing.
Yeah.
Did you get punched a lot?
No, it's funny, I didn't. I got people who were trying to like square up with me a lot.
Well, yeah, you get
Yeah.
the drunks or the like
Yeah, and then they don't
the
realize.
really offhand people who are like, "Oh, I'm gonna come in here, bro." Like, no.
Yeah, and like the thing is, I have like quite a baby face, so of course I don't look like the typical MMA fighter, or like what people think they like prison tattoos,
Right? Yeah.
super cauliflower. I have a little bit of cauliflower you can see in my ears, but they
Yeah,
have
he's-
super cauliflower. They think it's just like and bald. You know what I mean? And I'm like this, like looking like all right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, half of that is you're tall and white and you're friendly. Like
yeah,
that-
exactly. I'm not a aggressive person at all. And like I had situations, I've had to yank people out and just drag them outside. And luckily we just close the door, lock it. I had there's only let me think. There was one time, yeah, and I would have people randomly try to start fights with me as a bouncer. Like would
with
just be
you
like-
as a
yeah,
bouncer.
they would be like, "What are you staring at?" I'm like, I'm the bouncer. I'm supposed to be watching people. Like, you know what
I
I mean?
am literally
Like-
here for this reason.
Yeah, I'm here to watch, like to make sure. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, like just have a good time, calm down. And he's like, yeah, you need to watch yourself. And he's like telling me that, and I'm like, I was like, all right, you need to watch yourself because you're over here starting something that is non-existent.
Do you get
right?
keep people kicked out because of those things? Like,
Yeah, we would get people kicked out for that
Yeah.
because at that point they are a risk.
yeah, of
It-
course.
it could
Like,
escalate
you
at
need to
any
watch
point.
yourself. Like, but I don't. You need to watch yourself. Go out there.
Yeah, exactly. And like we would like it was funny like we had some like of course some funny moments too. Like we had situations arise that escalated like where they brought in this drunk guy one time. Then he was and like it was all these girls and this one guy, right? And the girls were like, "Hey, we're gonna wait for our Uber. I know you won't let us in because he's like super, like you could tell, like, and we won't let anyone in that's super intoxicated, right?"
Obviously, yeah.
And so they were like, "Yeah, you can wait on our little couch on the front door, and like wait for your Uber. We're fine with that." And we were fine with that until he turns around and goes, "Fuck you, bouncers!" And then we're like, "All right, get the fuck out."
Yeah, no
he
shit.
Had to get himself out, right?
That's awesome.
But like, and then there were ways to get people out without physically taking them as well. So of course, like if you are a bouncer, like the best way to do it, if you're having real issues with somebody, is convince them to look at their ID again. Be like, hey, we didn't check your ID. We need to check your ID. And they'll be like, oh, fuck you. All right, fine. And they'll show your ID. Take their ID, walk outside, and chuck it into the street and watch them go
No shit.
Yeah, we did that a few times.
Wow.
Especially if you pissed us off. If we asked you nicely, then we would get your ID and chuck it.
So what's
No
interesting
shit.
about this, like,
They'll go get it, right?
Yeah, no shit. I would chase it. I'd be like, no.
They'll go get it. Trust me.
But what's interesting about this is, like, we were talking about, you know, sort of modern views of fighting, and you know, America's very, you know, entertainment based, and like very ego based. Like, oh, I'm just a drunk dude at the bar. I could take on the bouncer. Like,
yeah,
it's very interesting. So, like, for you, like, also, like, you know, you're talking about, like, Eastern cultures have a respect for fighters, and you were talking about how we should respect fighters that way. I think we should respect fighting that same, like, I think that's an interesting thing, because we don't respect what people could do to you, really. Like, we don't, because that doesn't,
right.
For you to think that you could take on the bouncer is, like, you don't respect the bouncer. Like, you don't respect the fact that...
It's a lack of... Actually, it's more of an overconfidence. It's, I have such a big ego, I must do this nonsense. And I think that's actually... I don't know, I think that's kind of an issue with most parts of society, is so that everyone really wants to believe they can do whatever, anything. And I don't think...
That's an interesting point, yeah.
Okay, I don't think that most people can.
I agree.
I think that's a thing we have. We need to recognize when we can't do something, and acknowledge that as a part of our humanity. Like, I can't do biology.
Right.
I suck at biology. Like, that's my shit. Like,
but you wouldn't go around to a bar and be like, "Hey, I'm a scientist."
Yeah. Bro, I'm gonna tell you about some mitochondria. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Computers, yeah. Math, yeah. Like, I can do those things, but I'm not about to, you know, get in a biology bar fight.
And that's what you said earlier about, like, most people are like that. Most people can't admit that they can't do something. Yeah, and I think that's really sad, because for me, for my, like, fighting experience, like, with karate, and it's never been competition or anything, but just the pure... So you're talking about more, like, new, like, mentality of fighting, like, competition, all that.
Yeah.
Most of my stuff has been just, like, old, like, training, kata, like, just learning forms and learning the discipline. Like you were saying, it's a mental thing. It was a lot for me, just learning the limits of, like, my body, and then just trying to get better and trying to, like, slowly learn discipline.
I think you might agree with this, but a lot of the fighting arts are about personal gain. Not gain, but level ups. You continue to get better because you want to get better, and you train harder for you, not for
like marble. Like, if you're trying to make a marble statue, you chip away at it very
it's
slowly.
It's slow. It's not meant to be fast.
Oh yeah, and that's why we don't see people, like, when they first start martial arts, they might start for a while, but because they realize, wow, this marble stone takes years to make it to what it is.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want it to be done tomorrow.
Right.
And we also have that kind of culture where we want it done tomorrow, and not realizing it might take 10 years. It might take years. And you might not even have it perfect. But it's the enjoyment of doing it, of cutting that marble, is why we do it, right? Because if you don't, like, I tell people, like, deep down, you kind of have to like getting punched. To continue with it.
Just a little bit.
You kind of have to.
I got punched today, but maybe I dodge that punch tomorrow. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just that drive to get better, to
get better,
improve.
To understand, and to enjoy, like, the fight, and understand that you have to love it. I read a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? And
I've heard about this book a lot.
It was a great book.
I assume you have as well.
I've read it,
both in our vein.
It was a great...
I have not.
It was a great book, and, like, one part in this book, he talks about... He always wanted to be a rock star, but didn't want to do, like, the stuff to, like, become a rock star. So, like, you have to love playing in front of 100,000 crowd as much as you would love to just play for one person in a bar that nobody's in, but still have that same energy because
You know what's really
love
funny?
it.
So I read this book. It's called "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell," and it's about a dude who goes through lawyer school, and he's a bastard. He's a sexaholic, alcoholic, total fuckboy, and it's along those lines morally, where it's like, if you want to do the hard thing, you gotta do the shitty stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it is obviously like his drunken escapades. But the moral that I got from the book, and I've read it twice now, is that, yeah, if you're going to put yourself in a situation where you want something, you got to do both. You got to be the high baller and the low baller. And you got to take the punch, you got to deal the punch, you got to do everything in between.
What I like you're talking about, like with the marble, when you're saying it takes a long time, that's like, that's kind of one of the main things that we talk about on this podcast is like, most people want the image of something. They want the thing right now.
The unwillingness to dive in.
Right, but then we talk about it, and like these things are very deep. Like every aspect of culture, even like culture stuff, like making a culture, like an American culture or an Albuquerquean culture. There's lots of experiences that you need to have, and it takes a lifetime. And what sucks is like we have this lifetime that we deal with, and it's very finite, but people waste it on just thinking, no, I can get this done tomorrow, and they get like this cheap like knockoff of, or like an image of what the actual thing is, like of the marble statue. They just paint it. They're just like, yeah, this is the same thing, and then they go pick fights with a bouncer at a bar, and
then
like
they get destroyed.
right, exactly, and it's not real, and it makes, like it takes away the respect from someone who actually made the marble carving.
No, that's definitely true. There's a lot of neglect that goes into self-improvement. Most people don't really focus on that, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because you take people like you, where you felt forced into that, but also on the other side of the coin, you enjoyed it. You wanted to make it better and better and better and continue forward.
Yeah, and I think that was like a big part. It was like, yeah, I got into it to defend myself, and a lot of people do, and they just do their time, and then they're like, okay, I know how to defend myself. I don't need to do this anymore because I know how to defend myself, right? I did it,
which is
respectful, yeah.
Something to be said.
Yeah, and it's respectful, and I agree with that. And like, and it's like in any passion, right, that you are passionate about, right? Because I equivalent fighting with any kind of, even doing some form of art. Even I know that photography, I guess, is not from what I hear.
Did you watch that?
I didn't watch it. I heard him talk about it. He told me about that.
Worst podcast ever.
but besides the point, like, I loved it. Like, I loved the rough days. I love the days that I had to wash my own blood off of me and sit there and be like, do I really want this kind of life? And like, there were days I was like, yeah, fuck this. I don't want to quit this. But then at the same time, I was like, I realized like the little moments that I cherished. You know what I mean? Like that
those
little bit of improvement.
victories,
it could have been like the weirdest, tiniest. I could have gotten the shit wrecked out of me, but I got
but you
one
just
punch
nailed
in.
that. Yeah.
I got one punch and it was clean.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got better. And even though I'm not perfect, I'm not, Mike Tyson, John Jones, Holly Holmes, these huge names, even the gyms, like, because I train at Jackson Wings with these characters, these high-level pros. I'm proud of the person I am today because I was nothing close to that like 10 years ago.
Do you think that's mostly because... Okay, so I'm going to pit this against you, I'm sorry, but is that because you got better at fighting, or is that because you got better at being you?
I got better at They play together in my life. Because I don't know, I got better at fighting because I got better at being me. If that makes sense. So it wasn't
Absolutely,
that fighting
yeah, no.
got me better. Fighting, it's like weird. It opened my mind to realizing, because it played in any aspect, in my opinion. I feel like if it wasn't for fighting...
I've noticed that is like the philosophy of that discipline, and like just like, okay, I failed, knowing this at this moment, but then maybe I did this thing exceptionally well, and maybe tomorrow I'll be able to do this.
Yeah.
That can
It's
apply to like
fail,
anything,
fail
really.
again. but
Really?
don't
Yeah,
stop.
exactly. Yeah, don't stop. You know, fail now and fail often, right? Is the wording, right?
Yep.
And like it taught me that because it realized, like I have guys that I coach, right? So I coach at Winks MMA. Shout out to my gym, Winks. I have guys that
We got a plug, folks. What's happening?
right. Shout out to the gym I coach, but I coach guys and they know who I'll be talking about in here. And I always tell them that like I got a huge test in college, right? Like something big or
Stressful.
anything like that. And I'll ask them, are they gonna punch you in the face? Right? I ask them that, and they're like, no. And I was like, so I guess it could be worse. And they're like, you're right. It's not. It's know the. I always tell people that
That is the best way to look at fighting. You
Yeah.
know what? Here you'll get punched in the face, and you can improve by not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is like, after that, I just told myself, if you can do a fight, you can do anything, right? Because like that's the
Dude,
worst
that
thing.
is a great.
Yeah.
A great methodology for living life. That's amazing.
And
honestly.
I don't want to take credit for that. I'm actually gonna give that credit to Mike Winklejohn because he actually. I remember I was doing a fight and I told him I walked up to him one day and I was like, I just get terrified. I told him that I was like, I don't know what you do, and I'm like, and he was a world champion Muay Thai, and so I was like, how did you do it? And he goes, I was shitting bricks every moment, and I was like, it shocked me. And then he asked me, he goes, my big championship fight. He goes, the morning of, I woke up and the bed was soaked because he had sweat the whole night, panicking, and was just couldn't sleep, anything. And he told me, he goes, he's been through it. He's like, I've been through everything in life, but nothing was worse as compared to a fight. He goes, I've been through divorce, childbirth, just breakups, friendship losses, people dying, all these things. And he goes, the worst thing was having to go and forcefully go into a fight. And so I kind of looked at that and I was like, if I can do this, I can do anything. I don't.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because and so I've always had that mindset when I tell people that too. Like, yeah, are they gonna punch you in the face? No. So tomorrow, guess what? No matter what happens in that test, the sun still comes up, the birds still chirp, the wind still blows, the world doesn't end.
You
right?
can still drink out of things that aren't a straw.
Yeah, exactly. And like, the world doesn't end, and you just kind of like understand it just keeps going, and it doesn't matter.
That's
you know what I mean?
That's really that's
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Like that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And like that matches
Do you think there are? How do I put this? Do you think there are? And I think this is gonna sound very like stereotypical, but like warrior people who need to fight, who want that release like you have, or and versus, do you think there are people who would never that they couldn't fight, they just would not raise a hand?
Yeah, so that's actually, I'm going to go, okay, so I like that. So I'm going to go into an actual, I wish I can quote the general, so if you guys can look up online, the general that made this quote. So he said there's 3 types of people in this world. The first type of people are sheep. And there's nothing wrong with being sheep, so I want that to be clear in this conversation, right? Because people always say, oh, sheep are like, you follow the ground. What he means by sheep is you live in a nice pasture, you eat your grass, and you do what you want to do in your life that makes your life perfect, right?
Right.
And that's
it's
what you
comic
want.
book shop owner. Like,
Yeah.
he's not trying to
He's
fight
happy.
anyone.
He's
Yeah,
not trying to fight
happy.
no.
He's he eats whatever he wants. He's big. He's happy. He's got his vinyls. He's got
And
his comic
he
books.
sells things that he enjoys.
And
like,
we enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Like we can go in and be like, oh shit, Godzilla. Like
Yeah.
this is a sweet place.
and he's happy because you are.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the point.
And it's those little things. So that's what he assumed as the sheep, right? They're out there, they just want to do their own thing. And then, so the next group of people are wolves. Wolves want to hurt people. Like, that's what they're into. They want to they want to hurt people, they want to harm people. That's what they enjoy doing.
Right, and I think wolves are a little bit tragic because I agree with that existence of wolves, but like, it's sad because like you were saying about him, how he could go to like this direction or this direction. Wolves are a little bit tragic in my sense because
They're the
they
violence aspect. They're the
right. They could be different and like,
but they felt forced into
right
wolfdom,
and
if
then
you will.
whatever drove them there and whatever gain they got from it, that's gonna keep them there.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that too, is like what our society makes us and for what we feel like we're forced to do, right? Because I also believe that there is a choice, right? But sometimes you feel that you're forced to. You're not forced to. You feel that you're forced to.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so like those are those people, and then the third type of group is sheepdogs, right? Sheepdogs protect the herd, right? So they resemble the wolf, almost exactly, right? They have the fangs, they have the fur, but at the end of the day, they always choose to protect the herd, right? And so that's kind of like that mindset and it was actually an old it was actually the person who taught me this. His name is I'll call him Sensei Eric. I was his teacher assistant at UNM. He was a judo black belt, Shotokan and Shogun-ryu karate black belt, and I was the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy that came in and helped him out with the other aspect that he wanted to help with on his team. And he taught me this, and that sheepdog kind of mentality is something that I really emphasized in my own life, because I realized I was like, that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. I didn't want to.
Did you realize that you could have been a wolf at some point?
Yeah, and like me and him had this conversation where even in the fight community, right, like fighters, half of them are sheepdogs, half of them are wolves.
Right.
The ones that even found fighting used it as a way to make themselves feel empowered because of that vulnerability.
Right, like not only can I beat the weakest guy, but I can beat the strongest guy. I am the most powerful.
Yeah.
Like it's like, again, it's very tragic because like it could be different, but also like
it's a necessity. I think
it's also a necessity.
It has to exist in order for the sheepdog and the sheep to be needed. Because if there's no wolves, you don't need a sheepdog.
Right, exactly. And there's kind of two things
which is true
about that. Is like, so one, you guys should watch a movie called The Ringing Bell. It's a Japanese movie. It's like, it's very short. It's like 40 minutes to like an hour. It's an anime.
They made a movie that's 40 minutes long.
Yeah, it's older. It's just like a short movie, but like it's basically about like a herd of sheep where there's a wolf that comes in, eats, one of the sheep, and specifically kills the main character's mom, and then
that's not a sheep.
No, the wolf comes in and kills the sheep, and then the sheep, leaves and goes and finds the wolves and says, "Hey, I want to be like you. All right, I don't want to like be killed. I'm tired of like sheep getting killed. Teach me how to be like you." And he's like, "You'll never be a wolf." And then eventually, like, it's a cartoon, and he grows.
I was gonna ask if it was animated because it sounds animated.
It is animated, and he grows into like something that is. He's still a sheep, but like he resembles something closer to the wolf in the way that he looks.
He's like a sheep wolf.
And eventually, he kills the wolf in front of the sheep people, and the sheep are afraid of him. It's a very you should watch it.
Which goes in line with the actual story, because like in that story too, they describe that the sheep are afraid of the sheepdog, and even though
that's how they stay in line. They wouldn't stay in line without fear. But
like kind of how they argue with the story is, even though the sheep hate the sheepdog, and the sheepdog even knows that, he still will protect them no matter what. Even though it's the ultimate sacrifice, because he's not going to be able to be a part of them as much as he wants to.
He cannot be a friend for sheep. Ever.
Yeah, and so like, even though that he just knows what's right and wrong, right? He knows he has to protect them in that aspect, right? Even though, because it's like, why would you protect someone that hates you? But he knows it's the right thing to do.
And sorry, I'm gonna bring it back to like present day society is like,
we like those kind of morals. We don't think about other people at the sacrifice of our own well-being. Not often at all.
And so something that I want to bring back to present day is like, first, like something I think is interesting. You mentioned Sensei. What was his name?
Eric.
Sensei Eric. So like, do you guys know what what it means? Like Sensei means, like what that word means.
All I know
like,
is master.
It doesn't translate to master. What it translates to is, he who has gone before me, and that's a very like interesting definition, because it's not necessarily a master or anything, but it's someone who like
you trust because they have already done it. Those things.
Like we're young, so we're still coming up, and like a lot of people now, we hate anything that's older, like any sort of wisdom that's passed down to us. We say, no, you're wrong. We
definitely have rebelled against respect your elders, like as a whole.
Oh yeah.
Like I definitely feel like,
well, even history. we don't respect the fact
I'm
that
definitely
like
one of those people. I just like history, but there is
Uh-huh.
some merit to understanding what has happened because of certain actions.
Right.
I understand that, but
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. There needs to be more senseis in the world and less teachers, less masters.
right,
That's
right,
not
exactly.
the proper way to teach people.
I think it's interesting, and like today's like, like for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms, like, and I'm talking about like gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms, more I guess leaning traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms. They call their professors, right? That's what they call them because it takes 10 years to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We at MMA, even my gym, it's all coach, right? So it's that modern day. We don't go with the word of sensei. We don't do that, and it's not because out of respect. It is just because of, I guess, the culture.
Mhm.
Kinda
Well,
how
coach
it's
makes it more like active, I think.
Yeah,
Because
and-
sensei is, okay, I can spend 10, 20 years with this person and they will still teach me stuff. But coach is more like we are actively trying to make you better every day.
Yeah.
At least that's my personal impression of it. Like,
And,
coach
like,
is always...
Yeah, and I've worked with like even like with Sensei Eric was a great person, and like I think either way, both sides can be stubborn, if that makes sense. Even like the older
Oh, yeah.
generations, they
Yeah.
think
Right.
Yeah.
like I mean like
But that's the eternal battle.
Right.
Is the reason that they are masters is because they were once the stubborn ass bag.
yeah
Children.
exactly,
Mhm.
and like modern martial arts I really think kind of proves that, right? Like I mean I remember when I was in college and I was a teacher assistant, this guy was a black belt in karate, right? I don't know. I think he had been doing it for 5 years. Got his black belt in karate, right? And I'm Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and like of course I have respect for every martial art and everything that comes for it. He did not respect the ground, right? He literally told me I would never be taken to the ground ever in a fight, which I was like, all
Right,
right,
because
cool.
he doesn't have legs.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, let's spar MMA. And instantly I took him down. I shot for his legs. It was like the worst double leg. And I choked him out.
Yep.
Instantly. And like I was like... and then he-
BJJ is one of the most underrated
Oh,
martial
yeah.
arts easily. And I don't know why, because it's got to be one of the most comprehensive
oh, yeah.
martial arts that there is.
I mean, like the reason it blew up was, of course, UFC 1, 1990, Hoist Gracie, right? Like that's something you can go look up, right? That's like...
Wow,
this is
yeah, it is, because I know that.
Yeah,
That's
Hoist Gracie, right? Like,
hilarious.
that's what we always will go back to in our argument is, like at Hoist Gracie, he was a small guy in a gi, and no one understood what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was.
In
They
a
thought-
gi.
They thought it was going to be like this striking, and this little dude takes him down, chokes him out,
Yep.
right? And that's when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really blew up, was because of Hoist Gracie.
That's also
and what
one
he
of the
created.
first inceptions of the MMA idea.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That was, yeah. Because at first it was proven to be like, okay, what's the toughest martial art, right? That was the idea of UFC. Then eventually it blew up to show like, well, you need everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't just be a good... Because I can argue on the opposite. Because I tell, like, jiu-jitsu people, I'm like, well, you still need striking even in self-defense. Like, oh, no, I don't. And I'm like, I've seen, like,
Yeah, but
high-level jiu-jitsu guys,
Right. 'cause
and they
even if
get
you
punched
them
in the
ground,
face.
Yeah,
You just get one solid strike in, and you don't have to be tackled.
Well,
That's
even if you're on the ground and you can get a hit from the ground and you're not ready to take a hit.
Well, a
And
lot of
that's
the...
that's what I want to... Yeah, because street fights, 90% end up on the ground because people trip, they're moving, they're fighting, and they just trip. But that point right there, what you just said, was once they're on the ground and punches still exist
Right.
on the ground. And people, like I do MMA, right? We do
Yeah.
MMA grappling, where it's, we get gloves on and we start on the ground and punch each
Yeah.
other in the
Yeah,
face,
like,
right?
get
And then
off
you
of
grapple.
me, dude. You're
right?
You're grappling me.
And like, so like that's just, and you learn about control and you learn about like sweeping and attacking even from the bottom position, top position, whatever that may be. But even jiu-jitsu, like traditional, even jiu-jitsu guys still think that same mindset. Well, I gotta go to the ground. It's gonna be eliminated. Not the only effect.
Actually, I've heard a lot of analysis that jiu-jitsu people do better when they start striking and then start going to the ground because they end up not understanding well, maybe it is understanding their striking game,
Oh.
and then they can dominate again on the ground instead of having to to guess about
Yeah,
striking.
and so like we, coach one of my corners and one of my coaches, his name's Andrew Tennyson, amazing mixed martial artist, somebody you should look up, talk to, super intelligent, like mind blowing intelligent, and his big thing is, and he's a grappler. I don't know if he'd like me because he likes to call himself a mixed martial artist, right? He's not just a grappler, but he does definitely lean more grappling. But he'll tell you that too. He goes, you need to be good at striking so that in any situation you're fine, and then if you get taken down, well, you're fine.
Right,
You don't
you
have
win.
to worry, right?
You
You don't
You
have to
actually,
worry.
in some ways, want to be taken down. Like, you want to strike enough that they want to take you down.
Yeah.
Thus, your advantage.
And now we're getting to a point in today's age of mixed martial arts where it used to be where, okay, I was really good at jiu-jitsu, and I beat this guy because he wasn't that good at jiu-jitsu and we ended up on the ground, or vice versa, right?
Right.
Now everybody's starting to plateau, right? Where
Mhm.
everybody's good at striking, everybody's good. So
Right.
it's all about now athleticism.
It's
timing.
almost like chess at this point.
Yeah.
I actually
exactly.
kind of think that's a good point for MMA to
Oh,
be
yeah.
in, because it's more entertaining that way. I hate to put
Oh,
it
no,
into
it
the
is.
entertainment
Right.
aspect, but it is more entertaining that way.
Oh, yeah.
And
I feel like that, and something that I've been
I would rather
trying to,
watch a
like-
fair fight than
right, and
No, and-
something that I've been trying to get to is like, fighting is such a good metaphor for like everything. But like once people get good at everything, every aspect of fighting, like grappling, striking, even just like the mental discipline of being able to take a punch, that puts you on the equal playing field. And then it really, whenever you are fighting, that's an equal match, and that's like the I don't even know if that's
that's
the
sort
highest
of
level.
why you really want to watch those things, is to
Right.
watch an equal match. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I just want to see somebody's arm get popped out." Like,
No, you want to see like two great people doing
Great things.
Great things, right? And that's what I feel like a lot of society should be, is instead of it being like, oh well, he's grappling, I'm only a striker, so let's ban grappling. Like we should.
Yeah,
all...
you're okay.
Huh?
You're going for the, maybe we shouldn't just start attacking the method itself. We should just up level everyone.
Right, exactly, and that's what I think is like everyone should really respect that idea of discipline and just be better, and I think that would go a long way.
All right, guys, we're about to wrap up.
So yeah, before we wrap up, what do you think of the mics?
That's true.
It was really good for 100 calories, and
Would you rate them better than White Claw?
yeah, I would definitely rate anything's better than White Claw. Unfortunately,
There we go.
Even if I have to drink them for the calorie reasons, yeah, I'd rate it 10 out of 10 over White Claw any day of the week. I would
Hell
rather have
yeah.
a beer, but of course, when you're cutting calories and doing the right thing, that's kind of what we have to go to.
Is there anything that we should, as a society, take away from fighting? Like, is there one thing that you would want to give to everybody from a fighting aspect?
Yeah, we're putting you on the spotlight now.
And take your time, obviously.
I mean, I guess like, there's a lot, but I guess the one thing is like, I guess the Fight Club saying is, how much do you really know about yourself if you've never been in a fight?
That's a good fucking, my
And
dude.
So,
Yes.
like, that's kind of like, I've always preached that, like, you'll not want to fight the minute you do a fight. You know what I mean? When you've been in a fight. Then you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here in this situation. And because I feel like not enough people have had the fucking shit kicked out of them, and I've had the shit kicked out of me.
Yeah.
I
It's
think-
also interesting the level of people that could kick your shit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, like, the whole, how much you know about yourself unless you've been in a fight. It could be the skinny dude who just knows jiu-jitsu, who rocks your shit, and then you're like, wow, everything that I thought about who people are and who I am is wrong.
Yeah, and the funny thing is about that is there's always somebody better. There's it's a
Always a bigger
continuation.
fish.
That's always a bigger fish.
Always, and it never. There's not, and there'll never be just one big fish. There's
Right.
always gonna be one that grows, one that gets. He might be there for a little while on that.
Better
top,
luck, better strikes, better chance,
something.
Yeah.
better breakfast.
But yeah, exactly. And these little things, right? And I mean, look at Ronda Rousey. That's gonna be my last thing, right? Ronda Rousey was this person who thought she could just dominate everything, and she did. But because of that, she was stubborn, and she didn't respect anything. She fights this little hometown girl that she thought she was gonna smoke named Holly Holm, and it's fucking.
I remember watching that fight.
I watched that too. I cheered like a motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. The kick that's called, the kick that was heard around the world, right?
Yep.
Because it proved
Absolutely.
that she was wrong. And after that, did she ever come back? She comes back for one fight, gets destroyed by Amanda Nunes, and then she just went to WWE. You know what I mean? And like.
So that's the beauty of fighting, right?
Yeah.
You do it until you can't. Or.
And I think it wasn't that she couldn't. It was because her ego was so destroyed.
Right.
Because people,
that's
even
what I mean,
fighters,
like-
have egos. Right? And you become undefeated to a point, you think no one can touch you. And the minute you're just, like, you were vulnerable, it ruins your whole reality of what you think is this world.
Right.
Yep. That's the vulnerability you exposed yourself to.
And my favorite type of fighters are the ones that can lose, and they come back stronger than ever the next time. And they learn from it all. Like, that, to me, is my outmost favorite type of fighter. Is that
Those are
kind of
my
person.
favorite type of people, honestly.
Yeah. That can come from, like, the lowest of lows.
Zach and I, that's about the right kind of person for every situation.
Yeah.
All right, Zach.
I
Brent?
really appreciate having you.
Yeah,
having you on, Brent.
Absolutely.
You guys ever want
I'm
me
not
to
even
come
going to do an
back?
offensive joke. That's how much I enjoyed.
It was a very intellectual conversation.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm surprised that an hour went by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? If you ever want to come back on,
Instagram?
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Actually, you plug your Instagram. You know it better than we do.
It's
Go on.
It's Calhoun CALHOUN _MMA. So
Dope.
pretty quick.
Go
quite
check him
simple.
out.
Calhoun MMA. Please check him out. He is our first guest. Our first guest
Our
on
best
Best
guest.
Guest. Our best guest! All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell. Give us some feedback. Look at
Go
his
follow-
ass.
go
He's
follow Brent.
Go follow Brent.
Also,
Go follow
follow
Brent.
Sockshore Prod.
Yeah, Sockdraw Prod
Follow him
Instagram.
first, and then come see us.
Yeah.
And then
Ignore the octopus.
really quick too, I'm also competing March 20th. Fight to Win, Austin, Texas. Submission only match, 6 minutes. So come watch me on flowgrappling.com. You can also place bets on me. So if you want to make some money, come play some bets on me.
Dude, I'll play some.
Bro, I'm about to. What?
Yeah, I'll totally.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, that's actually why. Like, I would drink beer if it wasn't for that. So
Hell yeah, guys. Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.